Hello, I'm Sharon Tong. Welcome to In Parliament. Committees of inquiry findings on the deaths of 2 full-time national servicemen this year have uncovered clear breaches of training safety regulations. Delivering a ministerial statement in Parliament, Defence Minister Ng Eng Hen said the Singapore Armed Forces has made key systemic changes to strengthen training safety. First, it will deploy more safety officers on the ground. Second, an Army Safety Review Board has been set up to review the organisation's overall safety structure, processes and culture. Third, an inspectorate will set the safety culture across the military and oversee the individual inspectorates of the Army, Navy and Air Force.
Every Singaporean son is precious, and any injury or death in the SAF is one too many. But to prevent injuries and death, our commanders and soldiers must observe training safety regulations. Any commander who ignores safety regulations, whether willfully or negligently, puts his soldiers at risk, is not fit for command. Our soldiers can train realistically and safely. There need not be a compromise. Indeed, the more we ensure that conditions are safe, the greater confidence our soldiers will have in training.
In the death of Private Dominic Lee in April, Dr. Ng told Parliament the soldier's cause of death was due to an acute allergic reaction to zinc chloride produced from smoke grenades. In the exercise Private Lee participated in, the number of smoke grenades used exceeded the safety limit. But Dr. Ng added that such smoke grenades, which have been used by the SAF since the 1970s, are still safe to use if training safety regulations, or TSRs, are observed. To address public concerns, the SAF has since suspended the use of such smoke grenades for training, but it continues to use them in missions.
The second public concern arising from this case is due to asthma, as a significant proportion of national servicemen, 1 in 5, have asthma, albeit often in the mild form. The SAF convened a respiratory medicine specialist advisory board consisting of 5 senior respiratory medicine specialists to address this issue, taking into account the COI report. The advisory board concluded that the SAF medical classifications on asthma are relevant, up to date, and in line with national and international standards. It is still safe for servicemen with a history of asthma to undergo training with smoke grenades if the TSRs are followed.
In the case of 3rd Sergeant Tan Mo Sheng in May, where the soldier was pinned under an overturned jeep and died, it was found that the jeep driver was not licensed to drive. Sergeant Tan, who was one of the 2 rear passengers, was also not wearing helmets or lap belts. The vehicular management systems at all SAF units have since been tightened to ensure no unauthorized driving occurs during field training. Now, replying to clarifications from 8 MPs, Dr. Ng said there has been an average of 2 training-related deaths per year involving national servicemen over the last decade. While safety standards in Singapore are fairly high comparatively, he said this number does not mean the SAF is satisfied. He added the SAF always strives towards 0 deaths and injuries. MPs also asked how the SAF will ensure the cycle of complacency doesn't creep up again after periods of non-fatality, and how this can be balanced to ensure the effectiveness of the SAF.
We don't want to send the impression that realistic training needs to be dangerous training. In fact, that's not the message. It's a false, as I say, it's a false dichotomy. If you look at these 2 incidents, they are not high-risk training aspects. Driving in a jeep, clearing a room in an urban training setup. It is not the risk of the activity that set the people at risk. It was just disregard for safety instructions.
Beyond instilling this safety culture in SAF, I would like to suggest that the SAF also encourage a system of reporting near misses. I think, and through that, I think there's a lot of useful lessons which could help SAF minimize future accidents from happening.
In good countries or in agencies with good safety culture, that open reporting system is indeed the hallmark of one. And we've started that. The Army established a safety hotline in November 2011, where soldiers can ring the hotline and report safety problems. And as of October 20, since then, nearly a year, we've got about 100 calls, and they report exactly as the member said, unsafe practices, near misses, or safety hazards. So we'll continue to encourage that.
Now, MPs also asked if the incidents were isolated events or revealed a systemic problem. Dr. Ng said he was assured that the incident was an isolated problem. He added openness will be needed to restore confidence in the SAF.
So I welcome the ministerial statement on the reports UI. This is a sign of SAF being more transparent.
I know that this is not a one-off exercise that we conduct. This is a long-term exercise that we need to inculcate a better safety culture. I want to assure this House that SAF will learn from this and put things right. And after all is said and done, I think what will show is what happens on the ground that will give confidence to our men.
Parliament has passed changes to the Misuse of Drugs Act. Key among the changes, doing away with the mandatory death penalty for drug traffickers under specific conditions. Replying to clarifications from 16 MPs who spoke on Monday, Law Minister K Shanmugam addressed the concerns of those who spoke in favour of abolishing the death penalty. Mr. Shanmugam said the death penalty serves as a strong deterrent, providing an element of fear of hanging for traffickers. He noted that drug abusers have gone down since 1994 and that drug kingpins avoid Singapore.
Remove the mandatory death penalty. What will be the consequence? We are a lucrative target. Would there be more people willing to become couriers? Remember again, we are dealing with drug lords who are very smart people with lots of money, no scruples, and will mercilessly exploit everyone and every situation. And it's not difficult to get people in this region to become couriers. Lots of people who need money and lots of drug abusers who can be persuaded to become couriers.
Under the new law, the death penalty will not be mandatory for traffickers who have only played the role of courier or who has cooperated with authorities in a substantive way. Mr. Shanmugam took the opportunity to clarify some misconceptions on drug couriers. Some members of parliament had earlier raised concerns that there may be couriers who are innocent or they are so low down the ranks that they would have little information of use to authorities.
Let us be clear. They do this for money. They know what they're doing is wrong. They hide the drugs in secret compartments and try and traffic through our checkpoints. CNB's operational assessment is that couriers can give substantive assistance in some cases. Also, the very existence of the mechanism adds friction to the entire drug trafficking network. Every arrested courier is now potentially a lead back to the syndicate. The public prosecutor is better placed to decide. The public prosecutor is independent and at the same time works closely with law enforcement agencies, has a good understanding of operational concerns.
Now, couriers who have diminished responsibility are another exception. Mr. Shanmugam explained that there should be a partial defence for those who suffer from a mental condition which would substantially impair their responsibility. But it was not the government's intention to extend the defence to those who do not suffer from a recognised and proven psychiatric condition. Deputy Prime Minister and Home Affairs Minister Teo Chee Hean addressed several MPs' concerns that the changes send the wrong signal that Singapore was softening its stance against drugs. He said the mandatory death sentence has had a strong deterrent effect. After the death penalty was introduced, Mr. Teo said the incidence of kidnapping and firearms offences fell sharply.
Let me state categorically that we are maintaining our zero-tolerance stance against drugs. We are maintaining a zero-tolerance stance against drugs. Taken in totality, these amendments will make our regime tougher against repeat offenders, introduce new offences, especially against those who target the young and vulnerable, and enhance the effectiveness of the death penalty regime. We have to ask ourselves, what type of society we want? There may be no death penalty or mandatory death penalty, but the human toll is great.
On calls to give the courts more discretionary powers, Mr. Teo said the responsibility should rest with Parliament. Parliament should decide which acts should be criminalised and what emphasis should be placed on each crime. Mr. Teo said this is especially so when it comes to the mandatory death penalty.
Parliament took that responsibility for making this policy decision and sending this strong signal in 1975 after careful and serious consideration. And this, together with the other measures that Parliament decided on then over the years, has provided the basis for our success in tackling the drug problem that has overwhelmed so many other countries.
The changes to the bill will also see the introduction of hair analysis to detect drug consumption. It is also now an offence to arrange a gathering where drugs are to be consumed or trafficked. But beyond these legislative amendments, Senior Minister of State for Home Affairs Masagos Zulkifli also outlined to members in Parliament what other measures are being taken to comprehensively address Singapore's drug situation. Mr. Masagos said changes to the bill aim to enhance the rehabilitation regime for young abusers, but it does not mean they will be treated lightly.
A community rehabilitation centre, or CRC in short, will be established as a step-down arrangement for them after they have served a short period of detention in the Drug Rehabilitation Centre, or DRC. During their initial stay in the DRC, these young abusers will undergo the same regime as other drug abusers. The eventual transfer to the CRC is meant to enhance the rehabilitation upstream while facilitating their education or employment. However, these young abusers will still have to adhere to the rules and regulations of the CRC, and should they commit major breaches, they will be transferred back to the DRC.
The death penalty will also no longer be mandatory in murder cases where there is no intention to kill. Significant amendments to the penal code were passed, giving the court the discretion to order life imprisonment for murder cases where killing was unintentional. Several MPs rose in support of the amendments but called for further reform. Opposition MP Sylvia Lim asked if the mandatory death penalty should apply even when there is an intention to kill, which can be present in a wide range of circumstances.
Taking the most evil of circumstances, we have mercenaries hired under contracts to kill, intending to profit from committing murder. We have also had groups who rob and kill hard-working taxi drivers with deadly weapons. Moving to the other end of the spectrum, we find more multifaceted scenarios where the accused is not inherently a killer. For instance, an accused finds a childhood friend whom he discovers has been having a long affair with his wife behind his back in his matrimonial bid, and is unable to get over the betrayal despite a lapse of time.
The fact is, even in the latter situation, it is deliberate, cold-blooded, intentional killing. Because if it is not cold-blooded and intentional, if it is on the spur of the moment, there is a defense. Muslim knows that. If there is provocation. And there are other defenses as well. Self-defense, provocation.
Changes to the Criminal Procedure Code were also passed, and this stipulates that death sentences will need to be confirmed by the Court of Appeal before they can be carried out. This will happen even if the accused does not file an appeal. Mr. Shanmugam said this will provide another safeguard in Singapore's capital punishment regime.
The Court of Appeal may choose to hear parties if it deems that to be necessary. After examining the record, the court will either confirm the sentence of death passed upon the accused or set it aside, and it can make such further order as it deems fit.
Also passed, the Income Tax Amendment Bill, which involves changes announced in the 2012 budget statement. Elderly and handicapped persons will get enhancements to earned income relief so as to encourage them to stay employed. A one-off cash grant capped at $5,000 will help small and medium-sized enterprises offset higher business costs. The Productivity and Innovation Credit Scheme has also been enhanced so cash payouts can be given to businesses on a quarterly rather than yearly basis.
Government does not look at tax reliefs alone, but takes a holistic approach to supporting families. And there are several substantive forms of assistance to families that are given, whether the mothers are in the workforce or at home. This includes the baby bonus, infant care, and childcare subsidies. The baby bonus, for example, is the same amount regardless of the work status of the mother.
Also passed was a bill providing for the establishment and administration of the Goods and Services Tax Voucher Fund. The government is setting aside $3.6 billion to finance the first 5 years of the GST voucher scheme. The scheme helps low-income Singaporeans to offset the GST they pay on their daily expenses. The setting up of the GST voucher fund will provide greater certainty of payments, which will otherwise be subjected to budget availability, depending on economic conditions and other competing priorities in any year. The government intends to continue making appropriate injections into the fund to carry on financing the GST voucher scheme. Now, during question time, the Transport Minister said the Downtown Line rail network's original budget of $12 billion rose to $20.7 billion due to construction cost increases. Mr. Louis Tak Yew said much of the $8.7 billion increase can be attributed to Stage 1 of the project. The tender for this portion was called at a time when construction prices were significantly higher. Mr. Louis said construction costs, technical requirements and line enhancements made up 75% of the budget increase for the entire line. For example, 30 station entrances were added to various stages of the line to improve accessibility. The network was also extended from 40 to 42 kilometers. Mr. Louis said if construction material prices remain at current levels, savings can be expected from the present budget.
We are prudent in managing public funds. For all development projects, we ensure a thorough scrutiny and review at various stages, and we work closely with the Ministry of Finance on cost management and value maximization.
The Health Ministry is reviewing its current policy on egg freezing. Egg vitrification is a method of freezing a woman's eggs to preserve or extend fertility. In Singapore, only women who might lose their fertility through medical treatment such as chemotherapy are allowed to undergo the procedure. Nominated MP Tan Su Shan had asked if egg freezing could be made available to more women, including single women, to preserve their fertility.
There are various reasons why egg freezing has not been allowed other than for such medical reasons. And these include the fact that there are inherent risks to the woman who undergoes the egg freezing procedure, such as ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, bleeding and infection. Furthermore, because the technology is relatively new, there's actually limited information available on the perinatal outcomes of the procedure. For instance, the success rate, live births, pregnancies, and so on. And there is also no information on the long-term effect on children born through AR using vitrified eggs.
2% of applications, or 3,500 applications for Housing and Development Board loans, were rejected from January 2010 to September this year. This because the rejected applicants had already previously taken 2 or more HDB loans. There were 178,000 applications during that period. MP Lim Biao Chuan had asked if HDB could review this policy, but Mr. Kwok said the rejection rate is relatively low. He added 2 HDB loans are generally sufficient to meet the life cycle needs of each flat buyer.
The first loan helps buyers purchase their first home, while the second loan helps them right size as their needs change. In any case, flat buyers also have the option of taking a bank loan. Nonetheless, for buyers in exceptional circumstances, HDB may help them by providing them with another HDB loan on a case-by-case basis. I've been watching success rates of appeals, and the last I saw for appeals to HDB for housing mortgage matters, success rate is pretty high, 36%, which I think is quite good.
As MPs, we often encounter instances where the applicants are unable to get a loan from the bank, commercial bank, due to their incomes, and yet they're also unable to get HDB loan for various reasons. Shouldn't we help or facilitate these applicants to own their own flat so that at least there's some secure retirement?
While we will try to make sure that everyone who can afford own a home, I think the outcome that the members hope that 100%, everybody who put up their hand will get a loan. I think is a little bit unrealistic, because if you push beyond the prudence principle, then potentially you can have a subprime crisis as in the US.
The Health Ministry is encouraging eligible uninsured Singaporeans to apply for MediShield coverage. 35% of elderly Singaporeans aged 76 to 85 are currently not insured under the scheme, compared to only 8% for the general population. Health Minister Gan Kim Yong says his ministry is encouraging children to apply on their elderly parents' behalf.
Beyond MediShield, the elderly can also receive help for their healthcare costs. All elderly Singaporeans will continue to enjoy government subsidies of up to 80% for subsidized healthcare treatment at our public healthcare institutions, regardless of their insured status. Under the GST voucher scheme, the government will also provide annual MediSave top-ups for the majority of elderly Singaporeans to help with their medical expenses.
Students from the lowest socio-economic percentile have consistently progressed into post-secondary education over the past decade. Responding to a query on social mobility, Senior Parliamentary Secretary for Education, Mr. Hawazi Daipi, said more than 40% of these students have moved on into polytechnics or universities over the last 10 years. With the latest cohort, this has increased to 47%. Also, less than 1% of the Primary 1 cohort did not complete secondary education, compared to 4% 10 years ago. Mr. Hawazi said a confluence of factors affect the performance of students.
One important factor is the socio-economic and education background of parents. Other factors include the presence of positive peer influence, the commitment of parents to the children's education, and the support from schools and the broader community. For these reasons, our efforts to help students make progress need to be multi-pronged and to involve parents and the broader community.
Close to 22 million Sing dollars have been awarded to athletes for winning medals at sporting games since 1991. That's under the Singapore National Olympic Council, or SNOC's multi-million-dollar award program, also known as MAP. Giving this update on the program, Acting Minister for Culture, Community and Youth, Lawrence Wong, says over $20 million went to athletes, while $1.33 million went to national sports associations.
I think a lot of young athletes these days still view the fact that representing the country and winning for Singapore is an honour and a reward in and of itself. Front-loading the support from the MAP to the training and preparation process would actually be a more practical way of supporting sportsmen and sports associations, and it also gives greater assurances to athletes, coaches, sports associations and the families that the support would be coming in a very structured way from the start, more akin to giving somebody the petrol to drive from A to B, rather than saying when you reach there, I'll give you a petrol then.
It's something that I think we'll be happy to discuss with SNOC and with the sports community in general. I think a member will be aware that there is a differentiation between what the government funds through SSC and the MAP, which is an agreement between the SNOC and its sponsors, principally the Tote Board and the Singapore Pools, and other private sponsors. The agreement between SNOC and its sponsors is subject to review from time to time, I think every 4 years, and this present agreement will be due for review in 2015 after the SEA Games.
A total of 428 housebreaking cases were reported in the first 9 months of 2012. That is a 15% decrease as compared to the same period last year. Among the 189 persons arrested for the cases, 18% were not Singapore citizens or permanent residents. Senior Minister of State for Home Affairs, Masagos Zulkifli, emphasized that the police solved 91.6% of cases reported. MP Sylvia Lim asked if there is a concern over foreigners choosing Singapore as a housebreaking destination.
We do not see yet a surge in the number of foreign syndicates coming into Singapore. They know clearly that we are very strong in our solving our cases, as I mentioned to you, to the member. 91.6% of these were solved, and we have deterrent sentences against them. So I hope those are strong enough messages to any foreign elements who try to think that they can easily break into our houses and not get detected.
Parliament resumes tomorrow. Good night.